Title: Alpha King betrayed his fated Luna on their mating night. Moonlight rejected Luna story. Audiobook. The Alpha King marked her neck, then whispered 4 words that destroyed her soul. I don't choose you. The sacred mating chamber fell into a suffocating silence. Moments ago she was his Luna, his forever. Now his touch burned like betrayal as the bond between them began to twist and break. She felt it, their fated connection unraveling from the inside out. Pain tore through her chest as her wolf howled in agony, refusing to accept the rejection. This wasn't just cruelty. It was forbidden. An Alpha King rejecting his mate on their mating night. The elders would call it madness. The moon goddess would call it a crime. But he didn't stop. He pulled away, wiped her tears with cold indifference, and chose another woman, right in front of her. Then suddenly, the mating mark on her neck didn't fade. It burned brighter. A strange ancient power surged through her veins, one that no rejected Luna had ever survived. And as the Alpha stepped back in confusion, her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. Welcome to Moonlight Rejected Luna Stories, where betrayal awakens power, and the ones cast aside become unstoppable. Subscribe now and stay till the end, because what this Luna becomes will make the Alpha King regret the night he ever touched her. Let's begin.
Chapter 1: The Mark That Refused to Die. Something was wrong. The mark was supposed to fade. It didn't. It burned. A sharp, unnatural glow flared at her neck, spreading like wildfire beneath her skin, veins of silver light threading outward, pulsing, alive. Her breath hitched as her body arched in sudden agony, fingers clawing at the stone floor of the sacred mating chamber. Gasps rippled through the room. That's not possible, one elder whispered, stepping back. The Alpha King's chest tightened, his wolf snarling, not in dominance, but in warning. He had felt the bond snap, he knew he had rejected her. He had spoken the words. He had meant them. So why, was the mark still there? No, worse. Why was it growing? Her eyes lifted slowly, and the chamber fell into a suffocating silence. They weren't silver. They weren't any color the pack had ever seen. They glowed with something ancient. Something that did not belong to a Luna or a wolf. The Alpha instinctively took a step back. For the first time since his coronation, his wolf did not stand tall. It flinched. Behind him, Seraphine's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. Not shock. Not fear. Recognition. As if she had been waiting for this exact moment. The air thickened. Heavy. Pressing. The elders rushed forward, their robes sweeping across the stone as they circled her trembling form. One of the oldest among them dropped to his knees, trembling fingers hovering over the blazing mark on her neck. His face drained of all color. No, he rasped. No, this cannot be. The light surged brighter. Her body convulsed as a raw, piercing cry tore from her throat, half human, half something far more primal. The ground beneath her cracked slightly, a thin fracture racing outward as if the very earth recoiled from her awakening. The Alpha's heart slammed violently against his chest. This wasn't rejection. This wasn't normal. This was wrong. The elder staggered back, voice breaking as fear finally consumed him. That mark is not rejection. A beat of silence. Then, the light exploded. Moonlight burst outward in a blinding wave, swallowing the chamber whole. Wind howled from nowhere, whipping through stone walls that should not move, lifting her body weightlessly into the air. Stop it! The Alpha roared, reaching forward. Too late. In a single, violent flash. She was gone. The light vanished. The chamber fell silent. Empty. No body. No scent. No trace. Only the echo of power, and the faint, lingering glow where she had been. The Alpha stood frozen, his hand still outstretched into nothingness, his pulse thundering with something dangerously close to unease. Because deep inside, the bond hadn't disappeared. It had changed. And wherever she was still alive. She didn't die. She was taken. Episode 2, The Place Where Rejected Wolves Go. And wherever she was, it was not a place meant for the living. Cold. That was the first thing she felt. Not the gentle chill of night air, but a hollow, endless cold that seeped into her bones. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, lashes heavy, breath shallow, and the world she knew was gone. No chamber. No walls. No alpha. Only silence. Endless, suffocating silence. She pushed herself up, her palms pressing against a surface that looked like stone, but rippled faintly beneath her touch, as though it were not entirely real. A pale mist drifted across the ground, curling around her ankles like something alive. Then she heard it. A low, distant howl. Her head snapped up. Shapes moved within the fog. One, then two, then dozens. Wolves. But not whole. Their forms flickered, translucent, fractured, like reflections trapped between worlds. Their eyes glowed faintly, hollow yet aware, and their bodies carried the quiet sorrow of something unfinished. Her breath caught. Rejected, she whispered, the word trembling on her lips. The wolves circled her slowly. Not hunting. Watching. Waiting. And then, one by one, they lowered themselves. Bowing. Her chest tightened. No, that's not possible. These were spirits. Lost mates. Broken bonds. They should not kneel. The air shifted. A presence descended, soft, yet crushing. The mist stilled. The wolves froze. And a voice older than the moon itself echoed through the veil. Calm. Feminine. Terrifying in its quiet certainty. You were not rejected. The words wrapped around her like chains. You were claimed incorrectly. Her heart stopped. What does that mean? She whispered, her voice barely her own. The mist parted. Light, not warm, not cold, something beyond both, formed before her, shaping into a figure she could not fully see, yet could not look away from. Power pressed against her very soul. The bond you felt, the voice continued, softer now, yet heavier, was altered. Memories flickered violently in her mind, the alpha's cold eyes, his touch, the moment everything shattered. No, she shook her head, pain rising again. He rejected me. I felt it break. You felt what you were made to feel. Silence. Her breath hitched. Back in the kingdom. The Alpha King staggered. His hand pressed against his chest, his brows drawn tight. Nothing. The bond gone. No warmth. No pull. No presence. But when he reached inward to sever it completely, something resisted. Faint. Unyielding. Still there. What are you? He muttered under his breath. Back in the veil. Her hands trembled as she stared at the glowing figure. Then fix it, she said, desperation creeping into her voice. If it was wrong, then fix it. For a moment. The presence said nothing. Then, softly. I will not. The word struck harder than any blade. Her chest hollowed. What? You stand between what you were, and what you could become. The mist darkened slightly. The wolves lifted their heads. You may return as you were meant to be. A pause. The air thickened. Or, the light flickered, something deeper, older surfacing beneath it. You may become something this world has long forbidden. Her pulse roared in her ears. Fear. Power. Choice. What happens if I choose that? She asked, barely breathing. The voice lowered. Not cruel. Not kind. But absolute. Then you will never belong to any alpha again. Silence swallowed everything. Her fate. Hanging on a single decision. The goddess will not save her. She must choose. To be reborn. Or become something even the moon goddess once tried to erase. Episode 3, The Alpha Who Feels Nothing. And far away from the veil. The world moved on. Or at least, it tried to. The great hall blazed with torchlight, gold and crimson banners draped in celebration. The pack stood gathered, voices raised in forced excitement as the Alpha King stepped forward, his hand wrapped firmly around Seraphine's. "My Luna," he declared. The word echoed. But it didn't land. Something in the air felt wrong. Hollow. The bond that should have surged through the pack. Commanding, undeniable, never came. No wave of power. No instinctive submission. Only silence. The Alpha's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He waited for it, that familiar rise of dominance, the deep connection to every wolf under his rule. Nothing answered. Not his pack. Not even his own wolf. Inside him. There was only emptiness. His grip on Seraphine's hand stiffened. Still nothing. A flicker of unease crossed his face before he buried it beneath cold authority. Kneel. The command rang sharp. A few wolves hesitated before slowly lowering themselves, but it was an instinct. It was obedience. Forced. Learned. Not felt. From the edges of the hall, the elders watched, silent, tense. One leaned toward another, voice barely a breath. This has never happened. After a rejection, the Alpha should grow stronger, another murmured. Not diminish. At the center, Seraphine smiled gracefully, lifting her chin as if she belonged there. But beneath the surface, her pulse raced. Because she felt it too. The absence. The failure. And later, when the celebration dissolved into whispers and shadows, she slipped away. Deep beneath the castle, through corridors no ordinary wolf dared walk, she entered a chamber swallowed in darkness. A figure stood waiting. Cloaked. Still. Watching. "You're late," the voice said calmly. Seraphine's composure cracked. Something went wrong. Silence lingered. Heavy. Then. "You were supposed to take her power." "Before it could choose you instead," the figure said, stepping slightly into the dim light. "Why didn't it transfer?" Her breath caught. I don't know. The mark, it didn't break. It changed. That is not how it was written." A pause. Then colder. "Do you understand what you've allowed to happen?" Fear flickered across her face. Meanwhile, above them, the Alpha staggered. His hand slammed against the stone wall as a sudden, violent pain tore through his chest. Not empty this time. Not silent. Something surged. Raw. Unfamiliar. Alive. His breath hitched as his vision blurred, a foreign presence pressing against his bond, twisting, expanding, awakening into something he did not recognize. Something that did not belong to him. "What is this?" he rasped. And for the first time, his wolf didn't just recoil, it whimpered, a sound no Alpha should ever hear. Panic clawed at his chest. Because whatever was rising inside that broken bond wasn't just alive. It was becoming something far more powerful than an Alpha. Episode 4, The Forbidden Rebirth. Far beyond the castle walls, she hovered between worlds, the veil still swirling around her like living smoke. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum in an empty hall, each pulse a reminder, she could return as she had been, weak and broken, or embrace the power that now surged through her veins. And she chose the latter. A shiver raced through her spine as the energy coiled inside her like a storm trapped in a glass bottle. Her wolf growled. Not the familiar howl of a bonded mate, but something fractured, feral, split across dimensions. One part screamed in loyalty, another in rage, and another whispered in languages her human mind could barely comprehend. Her body convulsed violently as golden white veins burst across her skin, etching themselves into patterns that pulsed with unholy light. Hair lifted as if the very air obeyed her, eyes flickering with shards of silver, gold, and shadows that seemed to move independently. She was no longer the Luna the world had known. She was something else. Something the spirits murmured of in fear and awe. "You are the Unbound, I am the Moon Goddess, keeper of the veil, and your reckoning begins now," her voice echoing in every corner of the veil, both terrifying and mesmerizing. "Neither mate nor servant. Your bond was fractured, but your spirit is complete." A flash of anger and triumph surged within her chest. She could feel the emptiness of rejection, the betrayal of the Alpha, the sting of the pack's murmurs, everything she had lost, but now it was fuel. Not chains. Not punishment. Power. Pure, unyielding, unstoppable. "And if I return," she asked, her voice sharp, almost defiant, "can I take what was stolen from me?" The goddess's gaze sharpened. Light flared across the veil, slicing the mist into jagged shadows. "You may return," she said slowly. "But know this, if you pursue vengeance, if you allow your wrath to consume reason, you will break the world that betrayed you. Not just your Alpha, not just your pack, but the balance that holds all packs in fragile order." Her pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed at her to strike, to claim, to roar. Yet even as her claws flexed, even as the fire of rebellion scorched her lungs, a part of her understood, power this absolute had consequences no Luna had ever faced. The Unbound looked at her reflection in the mist, a fragmented, terrifying vision of herself, wolf and human entwined, neither fully one, neither fully the other. The storm inside whispered, "Claim the world, or destroy it trying." Her lips curled in a half-smile, half-snarl. "Then I will not be anyone's Luna. I will be something no one can control." The goddess's voice echoed one final warning, heavy with inevitability. "If you seek vengeance, you will break the world that betrayed you." Lightning streaked through the veil, illuminating her fractured figure. And with a breath that shook the boundaries of reality, she stepped forward. The Unbound was reborn. And when she returned, nothing and no one would ever be the same. Episode 5, The Queen Without a Pack. But not to the halls of her old pack. Not to the castle where betrayal had been carved into stone and bone. She emerged instead on the outskirts, where the forest thickened, shadows hung heavier, and the scent of rogue wolves lingered like a warning. The moment she stepped into the clearing, the air shifted. Leaves trembled. Branches snapped under the weight of unseen pressure. Wolves who had lived without packs, scavenged in silence, and survived in hiding stopped mid-stride. Their ears flattened. Their hackles rose. And then they knelt. Not in loyalty. Not in devotion. But in terror. The Unbound's gaze swept across them, eyes glowing shards of silver, gold, and obsidian. Each wolf felt it, the pull of something older, something raw and untamed, bending their instincts without force. Their spirits quivered before her mere presence. Her power did not demand submission. It claimed it. For the first time, she inhaled freely. The anger, the pain, the betrayal, all of it had fused into something potent, alive, unstoppable. And the world, in its blind arrogance, was beginning to feel it. Back in the kingdom, the Alpha King staggered through the corridors of his castle, the celebrations hollow in his ears. The power he had once wielded effortlessly was slipping, sliding out of his grasp. Commands that once shook the pack fell flat. Wolves looked at him with confusion, questioning instincts overriding loyalty. His dominance was eroding. The elders, sensing the disruption, convened in secret. Ancient scrolls unfurled, their inscriptions trembling in candlelight. One of the oldest among them shook, voice low and urgent. He did not reject her, the elder whispered. Not of his own will, something bound him. Murmurs ran through the room like a wildfire. The Alpha King had never been forced, no one had ever manipulated the bond of an Alpha. This was forbidden magic, the kind that hadn't been seen in centuries. One elder's hands shook as he opened the final scroll. Symbols glowed faintly against his palm, shadows twisting unnaturally. His eyes widened in horror. "There," he muttered. "There is a mark. On his soul." The others leaned closer, dread washing over them. The Alpha's free will, corrupted. Twisted. Hidden. And somewhere in the outskirts, the Unbound's laughter whispered through the trees. Not human. Not wolf. Something beyond both. The pack would soon learn that she did not return to reclaim a mate, she returned to rewrite the rules entirely. The Alpha's soul bears a hidden spell, a tether to the Unbound. And as it awakens, even he will realize the danger that looms is far beyond his comprehension. Episode 6, The Woman Who Shouldn't Exist. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Seraphine staggered through the hidden corridors beneath the castle. The crown of Luna sat heavier than ever upon her head, pressing into her skull as though mocking her. Her chest heaved, each breath jagged, her pulse erratic. Something inside her fought the title she had so carefully claimed. Her wolf, a creature she had once believed loyal and obedient, whined in confusion, thrashing beneath her skin. Power that should have flowed through her now twisted, fractured. Spells, rituals, even her family's secret lineage, none could stabilize the bond. The more she tried to force it, the more she felt it slipping, like water through desperate fingers. Frustration boiled. Anger. Desperation. I need to know, she cried, voice cracking, echoing against the stone walls. Why can't I hold her power? What did she have that I don't? Tell me. From the shadows, the cloaked figure emerged. Dark robes whispered over the stone floor, ice hidden beneath the hood. Calm. Precise. Terrifying in their stillness. You were never meant to be Luna, the figure said, voice cutting through the panic like steel. Not in the way you imagined. You were only a vessel. Seraphine's knees buckled. A vessel? Her voice trembled with disbelief. You mean I was nothing? Not nothing, the figure replied, stepping closer. But a tool. Temporary. Replaceable. And now, failing. The power never belonged to you. It was never yours to wield. Her screams echoed down the halls, swallowed by shadows, as rage and despair fused into cold determination. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the robed territories, the Unbound moved silently through the mist-shrouded forest. Wolves stirred, bending instinctively, but none dared approach. She was no Luna. No leader. She was something the world had never intended to exist. She stepped into the clearing, light spilling from her fractured, glowing form. Eyes burning with unearthly fire, claws glinting in the moonlight, her voice cut through the night with lethal clarity. I am not here to lead, her words froze the rogue wolves in place. I am here to end something. The forest fell silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And then, in a chorus of low, reverent growls, the rogues spoke as one. We have been waiting, one murmured. Another hissed, eyes glinting in shadows. Waiting for you, for generations. The Unbound's lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Power thrummed through her like a living heartbeat. History had been lying in wait. And now, she had arrived. The rogue's allegiance is older than the Alpha lineage itself, and their loyalty is not to anyone, but to the Unbound. Something long buried has awakened, and the world is about to witness a force that should never have existed. Episode 7, The Alpha's Breaking Point. That night, the Alpha King could not sleep. His chambers were silent, but the darkness pressed close, heavier than any wall. And then, the dreams began. Not his memories. Not his experiences. Her memories. He saw her trembling beneath the blinding light of the veil. Felt the raw agony as the mark burned across her neck, veins of power racing beneath her skin. Heard the howl that split through the very bones of the realm. The cry of the Luna who was supposed to be his mate. He shuddered awake, sweat slicking his armor, pulse hammering like a war drum. But the dreams didn't stop. They came again, and again, each time more vivid, more intimate, more impossible. He could feel the energy within her, twisting, expanding, something older than their packs, older than the Alpha line itself. The bond, it was not broken. It had shifted. Directionless, yes, but alive. Power surged across him, not his own, but hers. Sharp, raw, uncontrollable. His wolf recoiled in instinctive fear, growling in the darkness, pressing him to rise. He stumbled to the elders' chambers, frantic, demanding answers. They studied him, their faces pale under the torchlight. The oldest, the one who had seen centuries pass, spoke slowly, voice trembling. If she completes her transformation, she will no longer be bound to you at all. Not by blood, not by destiny, not by the bond itself. She will be untethered. Beyond Alpha. Beyond anything we can contain. His chest tightened. Breath caught. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the realization that everything he had believed about power, dominance, and legacy had been meaningless compared to what she was becoming. The pack outside the castle slept, unaware that the very force they had once cheered for now lurked beyond their reach. One misstep, one unleashed moment of her power, and the balance of all packs would crumble. The Alpha King clenched his fists until his nails cut into his palms. Anger. Guilt. Desire. All mixed into a singular, unbearable tension. I will find her, he whispered, voice low, deadly in its resolve. Before she completes this, before she becomes unstoppable. The elders exchanged worried glances, sensing the peril in his declaration. But he would not wait. The bond called him, not with the loyalty of a Luna, but with the raw, uncontrollable energy of something far beyond their world. Lightning flashed outside, shadows twisting across the stone walls, as if the night itself had sensed the storm approaching. He would pursue her, not as an alpha seeking a mate, but as a man facing a force that could tear the world apart, and perhaps consume him along with it. Episode 8, The Truth Buried in Blood. Meanwhile, deep within the rogue territories, the Unbound moved through the shadows with lethal grace. Wolves parted before her, not out of loyalty, but instinct, a primal acknowledgement that she was something beyond any leader, beyond any pack. The rogues gathered around her in a wide clearing, their forms flickering slightly in the moonlight, like spirits of the forest itself. The oldest among them, a wolf whose eyes gleamed with centuries of knowledge, stepped forward. You are not an ordinary Luna, he said, voice low, reverent, trembling with awe. You are descended from the first Luna. The bloodline the world tried to erase. The Unbound's glowing eyes narrowed, curiosity flaring through the storm of power within her. First Luna, she repeated, her voice a whisper that carried like thunder. Long ago, another rogue spoke, stepping from the shadows, your ancestors ruled in balance with the Alpha line. But they were betrayed. Destroyed. Erased. Their power buried so deep that no Luna would dare rise again from their blood, until now. Her pulse surged. Memories, fragments she had never known rippled in her mind. Hints of faces, names, whispers of injustice carried through time. Rage coiled in her chest, raw and undeniable. The first rogue continued, voice weighted with history. The Alpha lineage, your Alpha King's family, they betrayed yours. They stole from your bloodline. Rejected your soul. Forced you into this cycle. This, repetition of suffering. What you feel now, the betrayal, the loss, was never random. It was preordained, manipulated to crush your line. The Unbound's claws dug into the ground, leaving shallow grooves that burned with energy. Every fiber of her being trembled with revelation, fury, and power. The weight of centuries of betrayal pressed against her heart, yet it only made the storm inside her grow stronger. This, she whispered, voice trembling yet unyielding, was never just rejection. No, the rogue elder said, bowing his head. It is history repeating itself. And now, it ends with you. A sudden, sharp gust of wind swept through the clearing, lifting her hair, igniting her fractured glow. Shadows danced along the trees as the power coursing through her veins pulsed like a living heartbeat. The rogue stepped back, watching her, waiting. They had foreseen this moment for generations. They had been waiting for the blood of the first Luna to awaken again. And she would not be bound, not by tradition, not by pacts, not by betrayal. Her eyes scanned the forest, landing in a vision that made her stomach twist with a mixture of horror and resolve, the crest of the Alpha King's family. Blood-soaked history staring back at her. Her bloodline's destruction had not been accidental. The Alpha King's family, her ancestors' killers, were directly responsible. And now, the Unbound realized, this cycle of betrayal was not over. It was only beginning. Episode 9, The Hunt begins. The forest was silent as the Alpha moved through it, every step deliberate, every sense on edge. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, glinting off his dark armor, highlighting the tension in his muscles. He had followed the whispers, the trails of energy only the Bond could sense, but even it had changed direction, leading him not to obedience, but to confrontation. When he stepped into the clearing, she was there. Standing amid the mist, glowing faintly, fractured and untouchable. Every rogue wolf had vanished, leaving her alone. The air crackled with power, electric with anticipation. He stopped, heart hammering, gaze locked on her. Memories of her, his Luna, flashed through him, her warmth, her laughter, the betrayal that had torn him apart. But now, she was different. Not a mate. Not anyone he could claim. Something older, stronger, dangerous. She's changed, he whispered under his breath, wolf instincts quivering in awe and fear. She lifted her eyes to him. Those eyes, shards of silver, gold, and shadow, pierced through him, unyielding. The Bond hummed faintly, pulling at him, but he felt no dominance, no connection. Only recognition, of power. "I came for you," he said, voice low, strained. "I need to explain." She laughed softly, a sound both human and inhuman. "Explain," she repeated, her voice cutting through the night like steel. "Explain betrayal? Explain centuries of lies? You think words can fix this?" The wind whipped around them. Trees groaned. Wolves in the distance howled at some unseen command, but none dared approach. She was alone. And yet, she was everywhere at once. He stepped closer, extending a hand. His wolf howled, instinctively, warning, demanding submission, but it recoiled. Not at her, but at the force she had become. Even his own wolf, the creature that had obeyed him for decades, submitted. Trembled. Recognized her as something above him. Her gaze hardened. The air shifted around her, energy twisting and folding, bending the very space between them. Every instinct screamed danger, yet he could not turn back. Not now. When he reached for her, desperation flaring, the Bond pulsed a reminder, not of unity, but of lost control. "You don't get to choose me now," she whispered, voice cold and unyielding. Each word echoed like a strike, slicing through the night, leaving him standing on the edge of a reality he no longer understood. And in that moment, the Alpha realized, he was no longer hunting a mate. He was facing a force that could undo everything he had ever known. The Unbound had claimed her own fate. And anyone who tried to control her, even the Alpha, would face the full storm of what centuries of betrayal had forged. Episode 10, The Power That Breaks Bonds. The forest fell silent again, but it was no ordinary quiet. The air trembled with energy, dense and alive, bending shadows around her like liquid. The Unbound lifted her hand slowly, deliberately, and focused. Every rogue wolf, every spirit that had lingered, every flicker of mist responded. They obeyed, not from loyalty, but because her presence alone was a command. Then she saw him. A young Alpha from a distant pack, brash and arrogant, testing his strength near her territory. His golden eyes met hers, challenge igniting in his gaze. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. And with a word, he fell. Kneeling. Not from exhaustion. Not from fear of death. From the undeniable force of her power. The air around him seemed to constrict, bending his will, folding his pride into submission. Wolves whispered in awe, then fear. Packs felt it. A ripple of alarm traveled faster than wind, through forests, mountains, and valleys. A Luna who could dominate alphas, something impossible, now existed. The stories that had been buried, the legends erased, had returned. And the world trembled. Word spread quickly, pack to pack, whisper to whisper. The name she had yet to claim fully became a storm across territories. Fear turned into obsession. Alphas trembled at the mere thought of her. Rivals plotted, allies whispered, and enemies sharpened claws in anticipation, none fully understanding what they faced. Meanwhile, back within the cold stone corridors of the kingdom, Seraphine writhed. Her body shook violently, veins glowing with stolen energy she could never truly contain. The magic had never been hers, it was borrowed, forced into her, and it was killing her from the inside. Panic clawed at her chest. She gasped, eyes wide, the crown of Luna a burning weight against her skull. Shadows of the stolen power flickered and tore across her limbs, black smoke curling from her fingertips. Then, as her knees buckled, she grasped the edge of the altar. With a voice weak, hoarse, and trembling, she revealed the truth, her final, desperate confession. The mastermind behind all of this, she rasped, choking on the words, has been orchestrating it from the shadows, controlling both of you, all along. Her body convulsed violently, glowing veins snapping and fading as the magic within her rejected its host. She collapsed to the floor, barely breathing, leaving the Alpha and the Unbound with a revelation that would fracture everything they thought they knew. The puppet master behind centuries of betrayal, the one who forced rejection, manipulated bonds, and twisted destinies, was still out there. And their plan was far from over. Episode 11, The Mastermind Revealed. The cold corridors of the kingdom felt smaller, darker, as the cloaked figure stepped forward. Shadows clung to their robes like living tendrils, swallowing the light from the torches. Seraphine's trembling eyes barely comprehended what she was seeing, the truth she had feared all along, whispering in the edges of her mind. It was you, she gasped, voice weak, trembling under the weight of revelation. All of it, every rejection, every failure. You orchestrated? The figure paused, their head falling back just enough to reveal a face older than the Alpha lineage, eyes like cold steel, lips pressed into a permanent line of authority. This was no ordinary elder. Not even close. I am a high elder, the figure said, voice smooth, commanding, and without warmth. But not of your packs. Not of the Alphas or the lineages you cling to. I serve a hidden order older than kingdoms, older than the betrayal your bloodline suffered. We exist to preserve balance, to contain what should never rise. The Unbound's eyes flared, glowing brighter than the moon above. Contain me, she whispered, voice low, almost amused. I am not here to be contained. The High Elder's gaze did not waver. You are dangerous beyond measure. The power within you is not that of a Luna, not of an Alpha, not even of this world's natural order. Your ancestors were erased to prevent this very awakening. And now you rise, uncontrolled. Seraphine groaned weakly, the stolen magic still burning through her veins. It was never meant to be hers, it was supposed to be mine, to stabilize the line, to control her, she muttered, voice cracking. The elder turned their gaze to the Alpha King. And you were a pawn, manipulated through the bond. Your rejection was never your choice. Your obedience forced. All of it designed to test her, to see if the first Luna could be contained once more. The Unbound stepped forward, every movement a ripple of raw power. Her claws scraped the stone, the air around her bending like liquid under the weight of her energy. You've been orchestrating fear, manipulation, death, all to preserve your balance, she said, voice slicing like a blade. And you call yourselves protectors? The High Elder's lips curled into a faint, unyielding smile. We call ourselves the keepers of order. And your existence threatens all we have preserved. Packs, kingdoms, lineage, all destabilized by your return. The air grew heavy. Wolves outside the kingdom trembled at some unseen force, sensing the shift in power. A pulse of energy surged from the Unbound, a warning, but the elder did not flinch. In fact, the elder continued, voice dropping lower, we no longer see you as a threat to one pack, but to the entire world of packs. With a swift motion, the elder extended their hand. A mark, dark as shadow yet burning with a faint crimson glow, etched itself into the air above the Unbound. This is a death mark, the elder declared, voice echoing like steel in the hall. Every pack, every hunter, every force loyal to the balance, will pursue you. You are now a global threat. And you will die unless you choose otherwise. The Unbound's eyes narrowed, energy thrumming like a storm ready to break. Every instinct screamed fury, but a smile crept across her lips. The Hidden Order has declared war on her existence. Every pack in the world now hunts the Unbound Luna, and the storm she carries is only beginning. Episode 12, The War of Alphas. The moon hung high, casting silver light across jagged cliffs and dense forests. From every corner of the lands, alphas stirred. Word had spread like wildfire, the Unbound Luna, the one who had defied centuries of pack law, who had awakened powers that no alpha had ever faced, was alive and she was untethered. The Alpha Kings convened in secret, a council formed in desperation. Armor clanged, fangs bared, and whispers of fear passed through the great hall like poison. She cannot be allowed to survive, one declared, voice trembling yet authoritative. Every pack must obey. Every hunter must unite. This threat must be eliminated. A plan was forged. Hunts, ambushes, legions of wolves, everything the combined might of alpha power could muster would descend upon her territory. But when they arrived, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Mist curled around the trees like fingers, the wind holding its breath. And then she appeared. The Unbound stood atop a rock, light spilling from her fractured form, eyes glowing with shards of silver, gold, and shadow. Wolves paused mid-step. Alphas tightened grips on their weapons, hearts hammering with instinctive warning. But she did not strike. She did not roar. She simply looked at them. And in that moment, the wolves felt it. Something ancient, something primal that transcended dominance, lineage, and fear. A power that was not theirs to challenge. One by one, their instincts faltered. Commands faltered. Every alpha who had come to hunt her felt their wolves hesitate, bowing subtly without order. Their pride, their dominance, their legacy, overwritten by something that pulsed through the Unbound like a heartbeat that belonged to eternity itself. They are mine, she whispered, not cruelly, but firmly. Energy rolled off her in waves, not violent, but compelling. Wolves shifted, paws sinking into the earth, eyes lowered. Alphas faltered, their bodies still, compelled by a force they could not resist. The hunters had come to destroy, and instead, they submitted. The Council of Alpha Kings, standing together for the first time, exchanged fearful glances. Their combined power, their centuries of dominance, had been rendered meaningless. High above, the wind swirled, carrying her laughter, a sound of freedom, of defiance, of power uncontained. The night seemed to bow to her, the forests alive with her will. The Alpha King, standing at the edge of the gathering, felt something new. Not fear, not loss, but awe. His pulse thundered as realization struck like lightning. She was not becoming a queen. Not a ruler of packs. She was becoming something above the Alpha system itself. The Unbound Luna was no longer part of their world of hierarchy. And when the Alpha King understood the truth of her ascension, he realized nothing, no pack, no alpha, could ever challenge her again. Episode 13, The Bond Reforged, or Destroyed. The forest trembled beneath the weight of her power, but somewhere within that storm of light and shadow, the Alpha King stepped forward. Not as a ruler commanding loyalty, not as an alpha who demanded obedience, but as a man stripped bare, every ounce of pride burned away, leaving only desperation and regret. The Unbound watched him, her glowing eyes narrowing, energy pulsing in jagged waves across the ground. The rogue wolves around her stirred uneasily, sensing the tension, yet none dared intervene. This confrontation was between the two of them alone. I failed you, he said, voice low, raw, carrying centuries of guilt and the weight of broken bonds. I can't undo what was done, but I can try. Take my life. Take my power. Let me pay the debt I owe you. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. The unbound's claws flexed, her fractured wolf stirring within her. Rage, vengeance, and power roared. But something unfamiliar flickered within her chest. Hesitation. Doubt. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. The bond, long twisted, fractured, and corrupted, pulsed faintly between them. She could feel him, not as an alpha, not as a ruler, but as the man who had once touched her soul. And for the first time since the veil, she felt the possibility of something more. But before she could act, before the moment could take shape, the forest erupted. Shadows and light clashed violently as the hidden order descended from above, hounds of darkness and warriors cloaked in silver and black. Their magic radiated control, death, and intent aimed directly at her. Instinct flared. The unbound roared, energy spiraling outward, ripping through the trees, yet the strike was too fast, too precise. The alpha acted without thought. His body lunged into the path of the blow meant for her. Metal and magic collided against flesh, energy scorching through his chest, and he crumpled to the ground in a storm of pain. No, she screamed, fury and fear shredding her voice. Power erupted around her, a wave that tore through the attacking order, scattering them into chaos. But even as she unleashed everything inside her, she could not ignore the sight of him lying there, motionless, the blood of centuries of duty and pride now mingling with the devastation around them. The bond, her bond, shivered. Flickered. Quivered. It was alive, and now it hung between life and death, chance and ruin. The man she once loved, the alpha who had betrayed her, lay fatally wounded, his life hanging in the balance. And she now faced a choice: save him, or embrace the full force of her power, letting nothing stand in her way. Episode 14, The Rise of the Unbound Queen. For a single, fragile second, everything inside her fractured. Not gently. Not quietly. It shattered. A soundless crack tore through her being, as if something ancient within her had finally reached its breaking point, or its awakening. Her breath stilled. Her glowing eyes dimmed, then ignited with a force that eclipsed everything that came before. The air warped. The ground beneath her feet bent unnaturally, as though reality itself could no longer hold its shape. Trees twisted. Shadows stretched into impossible forms. Even the wind slowed, dragged into stillness by the sheer gravity of her presence. Time faltered. The warriors of the hidden order, mid-attack, froze in fragments of motion. Their expressions, calculated, ruthless, locked in place as if the world had forgotten how to move forward. And at the center of it all, she rose. No longer trembling. No longer divided. Power surged outward from her in waves, not wild, but absolute. Controlled. Final. The storm within her had found its center, and it was no longer something that could be contained. I warned you, her voice echoed, layered with something deeper, something beyond human or wolf. Light erupted. Not blinding, consuming. It spread like a ripple across the battlefield, touching everything the hidden order had brought with them, their magic, their weapons, their presence. Unraveling it piece by piece. Not destruction. Not chaos. Erasure. As if they had never existed. Silence followed. The forest exhaled. Time resumed, but slower, heavier, as though the world itself struggled to adjust to what had just occurred. Where the order had stood, there was nothing. No trace. No echo. No memory of their power lingering in the air. Only her. Floating slightly above the ground, light still pulsing faintly beneath her skin. But something was different now. Subtle, yet irreversible. Her wolf. It wasn't whole anymore. Not broken, but transformed beyond recognition. No longer bound to instinct. No longer tethered to the natural laws that governed wolves and alphas alike. She lowered slowly, her bare feet touching the earth with unnatural grace. The power settled, but it did not fade. It had become part of her. Permanent. Unchallenged. But the cost. It echoed in the hollow space within her chest. She turned. Slowly. Her gaze falling on him. The Alpha King. Still lying where he had fallen. Still breathing, barely. For a moment, something flickered in her expression, something almost human. Almost familiar. She stepped closer. Kneeling beside him, her glowing eyes searching his face. Waiting for something. The bond. The pull. The connection that had once defined everything between them. She reached for it. And felt. Nothing. No warmth. No thread. No echo. Just silence. Complete. Absolute. Her expression didn't change. But something behind her eyes stilled. The bond is gone. Completely. And as the Unbound stands above the fallen Alpha, one terrifying truth settles in: there is nothing left tying her to the past, or to who she used to be. Episode 15, the ending no one expected. Silence lingered. Not peaceful. Not calm. Empty. She knelt beside him, her glowing eyes searching his face as if trying to find something that no longer existed. The pull that once defined her, the thread that once bound her soul to his, was gone. Not weakened. Not hidden. Gone. A faint breath escaped his lips. Barely there. Fragile. But alive. The Alpha King stirred. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened, unfocused at first, then locking onto her face. For a moment, confusion flickered, then recognition. Not of a Luna. But of something far beyond that. You, his voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. His body trembled with the effort of staying conscious, of holding on to the edge of life that threatened to slip away. You're still here. She didn't answer. She only watched. He swallowed, forcing strength into his voice, even as it threatened to fail him. This was no longer about power, or pride, or kingship. It was about something far simpler, and far more fragile. Do you still remember me? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Final. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause again, not by her power this time, but by the weight of what stood between them. Memories flickered behind her eyes. A touch. A promise. A betrayal under moonlight. Pain. Her expression remained still. Unreadable. Untouchable. Then. She stood. Slowly. Stepping back. Distance forming between them, not just in space, but in everything that once connected them. I remember the pain, she said. No anger. No softness. Just truth. The wind picked up, brushing through her hair as the faint glow around her dimmed, not disappearing, but settling into something quieter, deeper. Permanent. She turned away. Not as a Luna. Not as a mate. Not as something broken trying to be whole again. But as something entirely new. Something no Alpha could claim. No order could control. No world could define. She walked forward, each step steady, unshaken, as the horizon swallowed her silhouette into light and shadow. Behind her, the Alpha lay still, watching the only person who had ever truly mattered fade into something unreachable. His hand twitched weakly against the ground, but he did not call out again. Because he understood. Too late. And then. A flicker. Faint. Almost invisible. The mark on her neck glowed. Soft at first, then brighter. Different. Not the same pull. Not the same bond. Something new. Her steps slowed just for a moment. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she felt it. Another connection. Another thread. Not from him. From somewhere else. From someone else. Her lips parted slightly, not in fear, but in something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Another bond has chosen her.